Commander Veltor stretched his long, scaled arms as he floated in the zero-gravity command center of his observation ship. His bioluminescent patches pulsed a calm blue as he studied the holographic displays surrounding him. For over 200 cycles he had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy. 23 species had already fallen to the Kethmori swarm, each one following the same predictable pattern of terror, desperation, and inevitable defeat. Now these humans would be number 24. Velthar's 4 black eyes moved independently as he analyzed. The human fleet formations. What a pathetic sight they made. Their ships were crude metal constructions that looked like they had been welded together in some primitive orbital shipyard. No elegant bioengineering like his own people used, no sophisticated energy matrices like the fallen Zephyrians had possessed, just raw steel, chemical rockets, and what appeared to be desperation holding it all together. Computer, record observation log 4847. Velthor spoke into the air. His ship's AI responded with a soft chime. The human species presents standard characteristics of a Type 2 civilization facing extinction. Emotional responses will likely override tactical thinking within the first hour of engagement. Estimated survival time, 37 minutes. Through his ship's advanced sensors, Velthar could see everything happening across the human fleet. On the bridge of their command vessel, a ship they had named Defiance, Captain Daeho Kim stood before a primitive tactical display. The human looked tired with dark circles under his eyes and stress lines marking his face. He wore a simple blue uniform with golden stripes on the shoulders. "Status report," Daeho called out to his bridge crew. "All defensive platforms are online, sir," replied Lieutenant Hyjin Park from her weapons station. She was young, maybe 25 in human years, with short black hair and steady hands, despite the fear Velthar could detect in her voice. "But, Captain, the readings we're getting from the Kethmori fleet, they're massive. Our computers can barely count them all." Velthar zoomed in his sensors to get a better look at the approaching swarm. The Kethmori were truly a terrifying sight to behold. Their bioships moved through space like living creatures, which in many ways they were. Each vessel pulsed with organic life, covered in armor that could regenerate damage and equipped with weapons that fired. Concentrated acid streams capable of melting through any known metal. The largest of their ships was over 3 kilometers long, its surface covered in what looked like breathing organs and sensor stalks. Smaller vessels swarmed around it like pilotfish around a massive shark. Velthor had seen these creatures devour entire star systems, consuming not just the inhabitants, but literally eating the planets themselves to fuel their endless hunger. Captain called out Navigator Jongsu Park from his station, receiving final evacuation reports from the outer colonies. Most civilian transports have reached the inner defense line, but ... double quotes. He paused, swallowing hard. "Sir, colony ships from New Sol and Harmony Bay are still 3 hours out. They won't make it to safety before the swarm arrives." Daeho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, Velthor was surprised to see not fear, but determination burning in the human's gaze. "Then we buy them 3 hours." "Sir, with respect," Lieutenant Hyjin spoke up. "Our tactical computers show we're outnumbered by more than 50 to 1. The Kethmori have never been defeated in open combat. Then we'll be the first," Daeho replied simply. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, all stations, this is Captain Daeho Kim. In approximately 15 minutes, we will engage an enemy that has destroyed 23 civilizations before us. They expect us to run. They expect us to break. They expect us to abandon. Our people," Velthar listened to the transmission with growing curiosity. Most species at this point would be broadcasting surrender terms or final farewell messages. "But they don't know us," Daeho continued. "They don't know that behind us are our children, our parents, our friends. They don't know that every ship in this fleet carries people willing to die for something greater than themselves. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember who we're protecting. Make every shot count. Make every sacrifice matter. And let's show these monsters what happens." When they threaten our home, the response from the human fleet surprised Velthor. Instead of panic or despair, he he detected a surge of energy across their communication networks. Ship captains acknowledged the orders with steady voices. Fighter pilots ran final equipment checks with calm precision. Even the civilian vessels carrying refugees began organizing themselves into better defensive formations. Fascinating, Velthor murmured. They actually seem to believe they can win. The first wave of Kethmori bioships struck the human defensive line like a tsunami of living death. Velthor expected the humans to scatter immediately. Every other species had broken formation within minutes of first contact. Instead, humans did something completely unexpected. They held their ground. The heavy cruiser Soul's Pride, commanded by Captain Taehyun Lee, took the brunt of the initial assault. Velthor watched through his sensors as bioacid ate through the ship's hull, causing massive explosions along its starboard side. Any rational commander would have ordered an immediate retreat to preserve what was left of the vessel. Captain Taehyun gave a very different order. All hands, this is the captain. We're taking critical damage, but we're not done yet. Engineering, give me everything you've got. Weapons, target that big ugly biocruiser dead ahead. Helm, ramming speed. Sir, the helmsman asked, uncertainty clear in his voice. Can't win a normal fight, so we won't fight normally. Set collision course with the largest enemy vessel. Everyone else, prepare for impact. Velthor's scales flashed red with shock. Impossible. No species sacrifices valuable military assets for tactical advantage. Violates every principle of warfare. But the humans weren't finished, surprising him. As Soul's Pride accelerated toward the massive Kethmori biocruiser, the rest of the human fleet repositioned to take advantage of the chaos that would follow. They were actually planning to use their own ship's destruction as a weapon. The collision was spectacular. Soul's Pride struck the biocruiser at full velocity, its remaining nuclear warheads detonating on impact. The explosion tore through both vessels, creating a massive gap in the Kethmori formation. Immediately, Major Boram Choi led her fighter squadron through the breach. The young pilot's voice crackled over the comm system as she coordinated the attack. Red Squadron, target the command nodes on the big ships. Blue Squadron, cover our approach. Let's make Captain Taehyun's sacrifice count. The fighters moved. With precision that impressed even Velthor. They used the debris from the destroyed ships as cover, weaving between chunks of metal and biomatter to reach their targets. When they struck, they hit exactly where they needed to cause maximum damage to the Kethmori command structure. Hours passed, and still the humans fought. When Commander Sujin Yoon's destroyer lost main power after taking multiple acid hits, her crew didn't abandon ship. Instead, they manually loaded torpedo tubes and fired them using backup systems. When their targeting computers failed, they aimed by eye and instinct. Velthor found himself leaning forward in his observation chair, completely absorbed in the battle. This wasn't going according to any pattern he had ever witnessed. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting with a ferocity that seemed to grow stronger with each loss they suffered. Computer, update survival estimate. He commanded, unable to calculate. Human tactical responses do not match any known behavioral patterns. For the first time in his long career as a military observer, Velthor encountered something that defied his understanding of warfare. These humans were supposed to be primitive, emotional, easily defeated. Instead, they were teaching him that. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one who refused to accept defeat, as the battle continued to rage. Velthor began to realize that he might be witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans weren't just another species fighting for survival. They were something entirely different, and that difference might just be enough to change everything. 3 weeks of constant warfare had passed, and Velthor found his carefully constructed understanding of military science crumbling like ancient stone. His bioluminescent patches flickered with uncertainty as he reviewed the latest battle reports. Every tactical prediction his advanced computers had made about human behavior had proven completely wrong. The humans weren't just surviving. Against the Kethmori swarm, they were evolving. Velthor focused his primary sensors on the Titan 7 mining station. a massive industrial complex built into an asteroid in the outer rim. The Kethmori had surrounded it completely, their bioships forming a living cage around the facility. Standard. Military doctrine said the station should have surrendered within hours, once their supply lines were cut. Instead, Colonel Jae-woo-kan was turning the mining station into something that had never existed before in galactic warfare. Status report, Jae-wook called out as he walked through the station's command center. The 50-year-old colonel moved with calm confidence despite the dire situation. His uniform was stained with grease and sweat, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. Sergeant Minesio Song looked up from her tactical display, worry creasing her young face. Sir, we've been cut off for 72 hours. Our ammunition reserves are down to 12%. Food supplies will last maybe another week if we ration carefully. And our mining equipment? Jae-wook asked. Sir, Minesio looked confused. Sergeant, we're sitting in the middle of the most advanced mining operation in this sector. We have haulers that can carry 50 tons of cargo. We have industrial lasers that can cut through solid rock. We have magnetic containment fields strong enough to hold superheated plasma. Jae-wook smiled grimly. We don't need ammunition. We need imagination. Velthar watched in fascination as the humans began their transformation. The massive ore haulers, originally designed to transport raw materials, were quickly modified into missile platforms. Human engineers welded armor plating to their hulls and mounted torpedo tubes where cargo containers used to sit. Chief Engineer Dongwoo Park led a team of technicians as they rewired the station's industrial lasers. These cutting beams were designed to slice through asteroids, he explained to his crew. But plasma is plasma. If we can boost the power output and focus the beam properly, we can punch holes through bioship armor just as easily. The work was dangerous and improvised. Sparks flew as welding torches modified equipment that was never meant for combat. But somehow it worked. The first time they fired a converted or hauler at an approaching Kethmori scout ship, the improvised missile tore through the alien vessel's organic hull like a hot knife through butter. But the humans didn't stop there. They weaponized everything. The station's artificial gravity generators, normally used to simulate Earth normal conditions for the workers, became weapons of devastating effectiveness. Technician Hyson Kim figured out how to create localized gravity fields that could crush incoming bioships or send them spinning helplessly into space. Watch this, she said to her team, as a cluster of Kethmori fighters approached the station. She activated the modified gravity projector. Suddenly, the attacking ships found themselves pulled toward each other with irresistible force. They collided in a tangle of writhing biometal, their organic hulls rupturing from the impact. What disturbed Velthar most wasn't the humans' tactical creativity. It was something else entirely. During one of the fiercest attacks, a Kethmori acid projectile breached the station's outer hull, flooding Section C with toxic fumes. Most of the personnel evacuated immediately, but Private Kyung-ho's son was trapped under fallen debris. Unconscious and bleeding, any rational military force would have sealed the section and written off the casualty. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few. That was basic military logic that every civilized species understood. Minek Eugenio didn't follow rational military logic. Velthar watched through his sensors as the young Minek grabbed an emergency breathing unit and ran directly into the toxic cloud. The ceiling was collapsing around her. Acid was eating through the floor plating. Bioships were still firing at the station's hull, causing more structural damage with each impact. Eugene didn't care. She reached the trapped soldier and began the dangerous work of freeing him from the debris. When a beam fell and blocked their escape route, she used her plasma cutter to carve a new path through the wreckage. When the soldier's breathing stopped, she performed emergency resuscitation while enemy fire shook the entire section. Medic, oh, you need to evacuate immediately. Colonel Jae-wook's voice crackled through her comm unit. The section is about to decompress? Not without Private Son, sir, Eugen replied calmly as she dragged the unconscious soldier toward the emergency airlock. They made it out with 30 seconds to spare before the entire section vented into space. VE Elthair transmitted directly to the human fleet your medic risked the entire station's security to save one soldier. Your species confuses sentiment with strategy. This emotional attachment to individual lives will be your downfall. Captain Deho's response from the Defiance sent chills through Velthor's scaled hide. Observer, you mistake our greatest strength for weakness. Every life we save becomes someone who will fight twice as hard for their comrades. Every sacrifice we make creates bonds that your swarm could never understand. We don't just fight for territory or resources. We fight for each other. That makes us more dangerous than any weapon you've ever encountered. The proof of Deho's words came when the Kethmori launched their massive assault on New Busan, an agricultural world that fed 3 star systems. The planet's governor, Young Kim, received evacuation orders from the military command. She refused them. This is our home, she announced in a planet-wide broadcast. These are our farms, our schools, our communities. We're not running away. We're making a stand. Velthor expected chaos and panic. Instead, he witnessed the most remarkable transformation he had ever seen. The entire civilian population of New Busan became a military force. Farmer Zhongdae Li used his knowledge of agricultural chemicals to create explosives from fertilizer and fuel. Teacher Myung Park organized communication networks using her students, some as young as 12, who proved remarkably good at staying hidden and relaying vital intelligence. Dr. Seo Gin Choi, the planet's leading botanist, figured out how to weaponize the local plant life. He genetically modified fast-growing vines to attack the organic components of Kethmori bioships, essentially turning the planet's ecosystem into a defensive weapon. When the first wave of bioships landed, expected to find helpless farmers cowering in their homes. Instead, every building had been turned into a fortress. Every road was mined with improvised explosives. Every forest path led to carefully prepared ambush sites. Captain Wujin Li commanded the Planetary Defense Force. With brilliant tactical skill, his fighters used the planet's geography like a master chess player uses pieces on a board. When the Kethmori tried to flush them out by burning the forests, the humans had already prepared for this strategy. The fires were channeled using fire breaks and controlled burns, driving the invading forces into kill zones where hidden weapons waited. They're using our own tactics against us. One Kethmori commander transmitted before his bioship was destroyed by a farmer's improvised rocket launcher. The most amazing part was how quickly the humans learned and adapted. Each attack taught them something new about their enemies. Each defeat made them more clever, more resourceful, more dangerous. Velthar found himself studying the humans with growing respect and growing fear. They weren't just fighting a war. They were rewriting the rules of warfare itself, turning everything around them into weapons, turning every citizen into a soldier, turning every defeat into a lesson for future victory. Computer, update tactical assessment of human military capabilities, Velthar commanded. Unable to provide accurate assessment, human tactical evolution exceeds all known parameters. Recommend extreme caution in any future engagements. Act 4. The first time in his long career, Velthar began to wonder if the Kethmori swarm had finally encountered something they couldn't devour. These humans were becoming something unprecedented in the galaxy. And Velthar wasn't sure the universe was ready for what they were becoming. The Siege of Harmony. Station began on a Tuesday morning that would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries to come. Velthor positioned his observation vessel at what he considered a safe distance, watching through his advanced sensors as the largest Kethmori fleet ever assembled surrounded the massive space habitat, Harmony. Station was a marvel of human engineering. A spinning wheel of metal and glass that housed over 3 million civilians. It served as the primary civilian evacuation point for the outer colonies, filled mostly with families of military personnel who had been fighting the Kethmori for months. Children played in the station's parks while their parents worked, desperately to coordinate refugee movements from dozens of threatened worlds. The Kethmori fleet that approached was unlike anything Velthar had seen before. At its center floated the most terrifying bioweapon in the swarm's arsenal, a planet killer known as the Devourer. The massive creature was over 10 kilometers long. its surface covered in feeding tentacles and acid sacs capable of dissolving entire worlds around. It swarmed hundreds of smaller bioships, their organic hulls pulsing with malevolent life. Station Commander Inho Park stood in Harmony Station's command center, staring at the tactical display that showed the approaching nightmare. The 55-year-old commander had served in the human fleet for 30 years, but he had never faced anything like this. His weathered hands gripped the edge of the console as he processed the impossible situation. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Su-Young Han from the communications station, "we're receiving surrender demands from the Kethmori fleet. They are giving us 1 hour to evacuate all military personnel and surrender the station." "And the civilians?" Inho asked. The young lieutenant's face went pale. "Sir, they consider the civilians... food supplies." Inho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his decision was already made. "Send a response. We decline their generous offer." "Sir, with respect," said his second-in-command, Colonel Min-jae Kim, "we have 3 million non-combatants on this station. Our defensive capabilities are limited. The Kethmori have planet killers out there." "I know exactly what's out there," Colonel Inho replied calmly. "I also know what's in here. 3 million people who trusted us to protect them. We don't abandon that trust." Inho activated the station-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor, every living quarter, every shop and school on Harmony Station. "Attention all residents. This is Commander Inho Park. In approximately 50 minutes, we will be under attack by Kethmori forces. I will not lie to you about our situation. They outnumber us significantly. They have weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They have demanded our surrender. Velther expected to hear screaming, crying, the sound of panic spreading through the civilian population. Instead, an eerie calm settled over the station. "We have a choice," Inho continued. "We can surrender and hope for mercy from creatures that have devoured 23 civilizations, or we can stand and fight for our children, our families, our future. I choose to fight. But this decision affects all of us, so I leave it to you. Anyone who wishes to evacuate may use the escape pods. Anyone who stays fights with us." The response shocked even Velthar. Less than 50 people out of 3 million chose to evacuate. Dr. Haewon Kim, the station's chief medical officer, was in the middle of performing surgery when the announcement came. She looked down at her patient, a young girl who had been injured during the recent refugee influx, then at her surgical team. "We finished the operation," she said simply. "Then we convert the medical bay into a combat aid station. If we're staying, we're going to save every life we can." In the education sector, Teacher Kung Soo-yu was conducting what was supposed to be a normal history lesson for a class of 8-year-olds. When the commander's announcement ended, one of his students raised her hand. "Mr. Yu, are we going to die?" Kung Soo knelt down to her level. "I don't know, Jimin. But I know we're going to be brave. And I know we're going to take care of each other. Can you help me with that?" The little girl nodded solemnly. Within minutes, the entire station transformed. Veltor watched in amazement as civilians organized themselves with military precision. Engineers began modifying life support systems into weapons. Maintenance workers turned industrial equipment into defensive tools. Even the children participated, serving as messengers and helping with evacuation procedures for the most vulnerable residents. The first Kethmori attack came, exactly 1 hour after the surrender deadline. Bioships swarmed around Harmony Station, like antibodies attacking an infection. Their acid weapons began eating through the station's outer hull, causing decompression alarms to wail throughout the habitat. But the humans were ready, Captain. Yansuli commanded the station's modest defense fleet from the docking bay. Her 12 patrol ships were vastly outnumbered, but they fought with desperate courage. When her ship's weapons ran out of ammunition, she used the ship itself as a battering ram. Punching through the organic hull of a Kethmori cruiser, the real battle, however, was happening inside the station itself. When acid breached the outer sections, emergency teams led by engineer Junho Park sealed the damaged areas and rerouted critical systems. When Kethmori boarding organisms broke through the hull, Security Chief Yoonji Song led civilian volunteers in hand-to-hand combat through the station's corridors. teacher, Kung Su, found himself leading a group of teenagers in defending the education sector. Using improvised weapons and tactics learned from emergency drills, they held off Kethmori assault forms for over an hour. Nate. Mr. Yu called out 16-year-old Dong Hyen Kim as he reloaded a modified maintenance laser. What happens if we don't make it? Then we make sure they remember us, Kung Su replied. Firing at a writhing bioform that was trying to break through their barricade. As the battle raged, Velthor's intelligence officer approached him with disturbing news. Commander, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the station. The humans appear to be preparing something called Protocol Omega. What is Protocol Omega? Velthor demanded. Before his officer could respond, a transmission came through from Commander Inho. The human leader's face appeared on Velthor's main screen, and what the alien observer saw there chilled him to his core. Inho's expression was calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes burned with an intensity that seemed to look directly into Velthor's soul. Observer, Inho said, somehow knowing exactly where to direct his message. You've watched our species for weeks now. You've seen us fight. You've seen us adapt. You've seen us sacrifice. But you haven't truly understood what makes us human. What are you doing, Velthor? Transmitted back. We're teaching the galaxy a lesson, Inho replied. If we cannot save our home, we'll make sure you pay the price for taking it. Harmony Station began to change. Every reactor was pushed beyond safe limits. Every weapon system was overloaded with power. The massive habitat wasn't just fighting anymore. It was transforming itself into the largest bomb ever created by human hands. Dr. Haywon continued working in the medical bay even as the station's hull buckled around her. We keep working until the end, she told her staff. Every life we save matters. Kung Su gathered his students around him as the station shook with increasing violence. Remember, he told them, we chose to be brave. We chose to stand together. Whatever happens next, we did it as a family. Commander Inho stood in the command center, his hand hovering over the final activation switch. Around him, his staff worked with quiet determination, coordinating the station's transformation with precision that would have impressed military engineers across the galaxy. All sections report ready for Protocol Omega, reported Colonel Min-J. No nodded. Through the viewports, he could see the Kethmori planet killer moving into position, its feeding tentacles extending toward the station. In moments, it would begin the process of devouring Harmony Station and everyone aboard. This is for our children, Inho whispered. An activated protocol. Omega Harmony Station exploded with the force of a small star. But this wasn't random destruction. It was weaponized sacrifice. Humans had timed the explosion perfectly, waiting until the largest concentration of Kethmori bioships was in range. The blast tore through the alien fleet, vaporizing the planet killer and hundreds of smaller vessels. Velter's sensors went white as the shockwave hit his observation ship. When the readings cleared, where Harmony Station had been, there was only an expanding cloud of debris and energy. 3 million humans had chosen death over surrender, and in their sacrifice, it dealt the Kethmori their first major defeat. Of the war? By the void, Velthor whispered, his bioluminescent patches flickering with emotions he couldn't name. What have we been observing? The first time since the war began, Velthor felt something he had never experienced while watching other species fight the Kethmori. He felt fear. Not fear of the swarm, but fear of what the humans were becoming. They had just demonstrated that they would rather die than lose, and that willingness to sacrifice everything made them the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen. The war had reached its turning point, and Velthor began to realize that the Kethmori might have finally encountered something they couldn't devour. The news of Harmony Station's sacrifice spread through human space like wildfire, and with it came a transformation that chilled Velthor to his core. The humans who emerged from the ashes of that tragedy were no longer the same species he had been observing. Something fundamental had changed in their DNA, their souls, their very essence as a people. Admiral Sun Min Kong stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned battleship Vengeance, his scarred face reflecting the cold light of distant stars. The 50-year-old commander had lost his wife and 2 children at Harmony Station. He had watched the final transmission showing his daughter's school being overrun by Kethmori bioforms. The man who emerged from that grief was carved from ice and fury. Fleet status report, Seong Min commanded, his voice carrying an edge that made even seasoned officers shiver. All ships report ready for Operation Cleansing Fire, sir, replied his tactical officer, Commander Ji Hai Park. 200 vessels, including the new hunter-killer squadrons. Seong Min nodded slowly, signaled the fleet. New rules of engagement are now in effect. No prisoners, no mercy, no quarter given or asked. The Kethmori wanted to teach us about extinction. Time to return the lesson. Velthor intercepted this transmission and felt his bioluminescent patches pulse with alarm. Every other species that had fought the Kethmori had tried to defend, to survive, to find some way to coexist. The humans were talking about something entirely different. They were talking about extermination. The change became apparent immediately. Instead of waiting for Kethmori attacks, human fleets began hunting their enemies across multiple star systems. Captain Namjin Cho commanded a new type of vessel called a Hunter-class destroyer, specifically designed to track and eliminate bioships. Target acquired, Namjin reported, as his ship closed in on a Kethmori breeding vessel trying to escape through hyperspace. It's carrying genetic material for a new colony. His science officer, Dr. Hoyen Wu Li, looked up from his console with a grim smile. Captain, I've finished analyzing the bioship's organic components. I can introduce a modified virus that will turn their own reproductive systems against them. Do it, Amjin ordered without hesitation. Velthar watched in fascination and horror as the humans fired what appeared to be a standard torpedo at the fleeing bioship. But this wasn't an explosive weapon, it was something far more sinister. The torpedo penetrated the organic hull and released Dr. Hyenwu's engineered virus directly into the ship's biological systems. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The Kethmori vessel began consuming itself from the inside out, its own organic components turning cannibalistic. Within minutes, the massive bioship collapsed into a writhing mass of corrupted tissue. Virus deployment successful, Dr. Hanwu reported calmly. The infected genetic material will spread to any Kethmori facility that tries to process it. Estimated contamination radius, 12 star systems. But the humans weren't finished with their evolution. Lieutenant Colonel Vijin Bey led a new type of military unit that barely resembled conventional soldiers. Her special forces teams conducted raids that were less military operations and more acts of artistic vengeance. Velthor focused his sensors on the Kethmori supply depot at Zarian 7 as the Jin's team approached. The humans moved through space in modified stealth ships that had been grown rather than built, using captured Kethmori biotechnology against its creators. Remember, the Jin briefed her team as they prepared for insertion. We're not just destroying this facility. We're sending a message. Every Kethmori who sees what we leave behind should understand what happens when you threaten human children. The raid was surgical in its precision and artistic in its brutality. The Jin's team didn't simply blow up the supply depot. They systematically converted every Kethmori bioform in the facility into grotesque sculptures of human vengeance. Living walls that screamed warnings in Kethmori biolanguage. Organic computers reprogrammed to broadcast images of Harmony Station's destruction on endless loops. When they were finished, the supply depot had become a monument to human fury that could be seen from orbit. Mission complete, the Jin reported. The facility is now broadcasting our message to every Kethmori ship in the sector. Let them know we're coming. Velthor transmitted an urgent report to his superiors. The humans are no longer following conventional warfare doctrines. They've become something unprecedented in galactic history. They're not trying to win battles. They're trying to win fear. But the humans weren't finished evolving. They began modifying themselves in ways that violated every natural law Velthor understood. Pilot Jin Wusong volunteered for an experimental procedure that fused human DNA with synthetic materials designed to withstand impossible G-forces. When he emerged from the medical facility, he was technically still human, but he could survive. Accelerations that would turn normal people into liquid. Testing new combat capabilities, Jinwoo reported as he launched his modified fighter craft toward a cluster of Kethmori interceptors. His ship accelerated at speeds that should have killed him instantly, weaving between enemy fire with inhuman precision. The Kethmori pilots couldn't match his movements. Their bioships, designed for organic limitations, simply couldn't keep up with a human who had transcended those boundaries. Jinwoo destroyed the entire enemy squadron in under 3 minutes. Engineer Sujin Han took an even more radical step. She volunteered to have her consciousness partially merged with the AI systems of a human battleship, becoming a hybrid being capable of controlling multiple vessels simultaneously. Integration complete. Sujin's voice echoed from the ship's speakers, no longer quite human but something more. I can feel every system, every weapon, every crew member. We're not just a ship anymore. We're a weapon of singular purpose. Velthor watched in growing terror as Sujin's hybrid consciousness controlled an entire fleet with impossible coordination. Every ship moved as part of a single organism, anticipating enemy movements and countering them before the Kethmori could even complete their attacks. The most frightening aspect of human warfare wasn't their tactics or their technology, was their concept of total war. They didn't just attack military targets. They systematically dismantled everything that supported Kethmori civilization. Dr. Changwoo Kim, the humans' leading xenobiologist, developed weapons that poisoned Kethmori breeding worlds, making them uninhabitable for generations. His viruses didn't just kill, they corrupted the very genetic templates the Kethmori used to reproduce. Every world they've touched, every colony they've established, every trace of their influence in this galaxy, Changwoo explained to his research team, must be eliminated. Not damaged, not conquered, eliminated. The humans hunted down Kethmori influence with a thoroughness that impressed and terrified Velthor. They tracked biospores through hyperspace. They followed genetic traces to hidden colonies. They found and destroyed Kethmori installations that had been hidden for centuries. Commander Velthor Sa whispered urgently, "Our sensors are detecting human ships surrounding our position." Velthor checked his displays and felt his scales go cold. 12 human vessels had appeared around his observation ship without triggering any alarms. They weren't attacking. They were just watching, waiting. A transmission came through on all frequencies. "Observer Velthor, this is Admiral Songmin Kong. You've been watching us for months now. You've seen what we do to our enemies. You've documented how we fight, how we adapt, how we evolve. You understand what we're capable of." Velthor's bioluminescent patches flickered with fear. "Admiral, I am a neutral observer. My people have taken no hostile action against your species." "I know," Seongmin replied, his voice carrying a cold amusement. "That's why you're still alive. But neutrality has its limits, observer. You've seen what we do to our enemies. Don't become one." The human ships held their position for exactly 60 seconds, then vanished back into hyperspace as silently as they had arrived. The message was clear. The humans knew they were being watched, and they were allowing it to continue only as long as it served their purposes. Velthor transmitted an emergency report to the Galactic Hegemony. The human species has undergone a fundamental transformation. They are no longer simply fighting for survival. They are reshaping themselves into something designed specifically for warfare. They have transcended normal biological limitations and embraced capabilities that border on the supernatural. Recommendation: avoid any actions that might be construed as hostile, and the humans have become the most dangerous predator this galaxy has ever seen. Had witnessed the birth of something that would change the galaxy forever. The humans weren't just winning their war against the Kethmori, they were evolving into something that made the Kethmori look like harmless insects by comparison. 6 months had passed since Harmony Station's sacrifice became the rallying cry that echoed across human space. Velthor positioned his observation vessel at the edge of the Kethmori home system, watching as the largest military force in galactic history assembled for what could only be described as a reckoning. The human fleet that gathered was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Over 10,000 vessels of every size and design formed a perfect sphere around the Kethmori homeworld. But these weren't the crude metal ships Velthor had initially dismissed. These were weapons of war evolved through months of constant battle, each one modified with captured biotechnology and enhanced beyond original specifications. At the center of the formation, Admiral Ji Hai Park commanded from the bridge of the massive dreadnought Harmony's Vengeance. The ship itself was a monument to human ingenuity, built from the wreckage of destroyed Kethmori vessels and powered by fusion reactors that burned with the fury of artificial stars. Fleet status report, Jihai commanded, her voice carrying across 10,000 ships simultaneously through quantum communication networks. All vessels report ready for Operation Final Solution, responded her tactical coordinator, Captain Young-Ho Kim. Our ground forces are prepared for planetary assault. Stellar engineering teams are in position. Xenobiology labs have confirmed weapon readiness. Jihai nodded slowly. She had lost her twin sister at Harmony Station, watching helplessly through a tactical display as Kethmori bioforms overran the civilian sectors. The woman who stood on this bridge was forged from that loss, tempered by months of warfare into something harder than steel. Signal the Kethmori homeworld, she ordered. Give them one last chance to surrender. The response came within minutes. A bioship launched from the planet's surface, its organic hull pulsing with arrogant defiance. It broadcasted the same message the Kethmori had sent to 23 other species. We do not surrender. We consume. We devour. You will become food.
All good.
Jihai's expression didn't change. Very well. Begin the operation. What followed wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. It was an orchestrated extinction event. General Donghyun Kim led the ground. Assault, commanding forces that had evolved beyond recognition. His soldiers wore bioarmor created from captured Kethmori technology, making them immune to the aliens' acid weapons. They carried guns that fired weaponized viruses instead of bullets, turning the Kethmori's own biology against them. Remember, Donghyun transmitted to his troops as their dropships descended toward the planet. We're not just fighting for victory, we're fighting for every child who died at Harmony Station, every family that was torn apart, every dream that was destroyed. Make them pay for all of it. The landing was swift and brutal. Human soldiers moved through Kethmori hive cities like angels of death, their bioarmor, allowing them to survive in environments that would kill normal humans. When they encountered resistance, they didn't just overcome it, they turned it into a weapon against the defenders. Sergeant Minjon Park led his squad into the heart of a Kethmori breeding complex, where millions of alien larvae were being prepared for future invasions. Instead of simply destroying the facility, they introduced Dr. Hanwoo, Lee's latest creation, a genetic virus that would corrupt every bioform it touched. Virus deployed, Minjun reported as his team retreated from the complex. Behind them, the entire facility began to collapse as its organic components turned against each other. But the ground assault was only one part of the human strategy. In space, Admiral Jihai orchestrated something that would have been impossible for any other species to conceive. Stellar engineering teams begin Phase 1. She commanded Captain Wusong. Han commanded a fleet of specialized vessels designed for one purpose, turning entire star systems into weapons. His ships began their work on the asteroid belt using massive tractor beams to accelerate chunks of rock to near-light speed before hurling them at Kethmori installations. Target the gas giant Kethmer 5, Jihai ordered. Initiate fusion cascade. Commander Soyoung Lee piloted her engineering ship directly into the gas giant's atmosphere, deploying fusion bombs deep within the planet's core. The resulting explosion turned the entire world into a temporary star, its radiation sterilizing every Kethmori colony in the outer system. But the most terrifying aspect of the human assault was Dr. Hyanwoo Lee's final solution. The xenobiologist had spent months developing something that went beyond conventional weapons. He had created a tool of absolute extinction. Genetic dissolution weapon is ready for deployment, Dr. Hyanwoo reported from his laboratory ship. This won't just kill them. It will unmake them on a molecular level. Deploy it, Jihai ordered without hesitation. The weapon spread through the Kethmori homeworld like invisible death. Unlike conventional bioweapons that simply killed, this creation literally unraveled Kethmori DNA, causing their bodies to dissolve at the cellular level. More horrifyingly, it was designed to spread through their bioships and colonies, following Kethmori genetic traces wherever they led. Velthor watched in stunned silence as an entire species began to cease existing. The Kethmori weren't being defeated, they were being erased from reality itself. This is not war, Velthor transmitted to his superiors. This is something beyond war. The humans have created a weapon that destroys not just life, but the very concept of a species. Captain Deho's voice came through the communication channel, calm and implacable. The veteran commander's face bore the scars of countless battles. His eyes held a clarity that chilled Velthar to his core. You're right, Observer. This isn't war. This is justice. This is what happens when you threaten humanity's children. When you force us to choose between mercy and survival, we choose survival. When you make us choose between forgiveness and security, we choose security. The Kethmori wanted to teach the galaxy about extinction. We've learned the lesson well. The final phase of the operation was perhaps the most chilling. Admiral Jahai didn't stop with the homeworld. Her fleet spread across the galaxy, following Kethmori genetic traces to every world they had ever touched. Every colony, every outpost, every trace of their influence was systematically eliminated. Dr. Changmin Yu led teams that sterilized entire worlds, using the genetic weapon to ensure that no Kethmori DNA could ever again spawn new life. They didn't just destroy, they purified, removing every trace of the alien species from existence. Final report, Jihai announced to the assembled fleet. All Kethmori genetic material has been located and neutralized. All bioships have been dissolved. All colonies have been sterilized. The species known as the Kethmori no longer exists in any form. Velthar compiled his final report with appendages that trembled not from fear, but from a profound understanding of what he had witnessed. To the Galactic Hegemony Council. I have observed the human species evolve from apparent primitives to the most dangerous force in galactic history. They do not simply wage war, they become war incarnate when their families are threatened. They possess capabilities for both infinite compassion and absolute vengeance that transcend all known tactical analysis. They will sacrifice everything to protect strangers. They will destroy everything to avenge their loved ones. They can show mercy that spans galaxies, or deliver justice that erases species from existence. I thought I understood conflict. I was catastrophically wrong. Recommendation: never threaten humanity's children. Never mistake their kindness for weakness. Never assume their restraint means they are harmless. The humans have proven they can unmake entire species when sufficiently motivated. They are not conquerors, they are guardians. And that makes them more dangerous than any empire that has ever existed. Consider yourselves warned. As Velthor's ship departed the Nausilent system, where the Kethmori homeworld had once existed, he watched the human fleet begin its journey home. They weren't celebrating victory, they were already preparing for their next mission. Not conquest, protection. The humans had evolved into something unprecedented, a species capable of absolute destruction in service of absolute protection. They would spread across the galaxy, not as invaders, but as sentinels, ready to unleash extinction itself upon anyone who dared threaten innocent life. Velthor realized this was perhaps the most terrifying truth of all. The humans hadn't just won a war, they had become something that would reshape the very nature of galactic civilization. In their mercy, they would protect the weak. In their fury, they would destroy the wicked. The galaxy would never be the same. The end.